It's a runaway train, as a House panel was holding a hearing this morning to hammer the free-spending, freewheeling GSA for its costly conferences. I know you remember this picture. The GSA was holding yet another conference at the exact same time. I know, it's impossible to believe, right? I didn't believe it this morning when I saw it. The conference is going on today in a sprawling Opryland Convention Center in Nashville, Tennessee. I have to say, the GSA has gone completely over the edge, hog wild. With me now, straight from leading the hearing, is Congressman John Mica. Congressman, I mean, this is impossible to believe. It was so shocking when I heard this today. Did you know about this, and were you also shocked?
Well, it's like the wasteful nightmare that doesn't end, and we've just received information in the past few days of as many as 77 conferences that our investigators and the Inspector General's investigators from GSA are now looking at, all of which have the potential for, again, huge amounts of waste and malappropriation of taxpayer funds.
They said they had to have this one today because it was held to improve the management of government charge cards. I mean, the irony there is really thick. I mean, how does this keep happening? Why aren't all of these people fired and this agency shut down?
Well, it's hard to uncover. You know, they stonewalled us. I've been the chairman for a year and a half, and from the first hearing when we found that their administrative costs had soared some 300%, we've been after them. The Inspector General managed to get some information on the Las Vegas conference. Now we've seen Virginia. Now we say 77 other conferences that we're looking at. And then today, right in your face, another conference. And then a lot of the first tier we had removed, fired, or they had to resign. The second tier wouldn't show up today. And they sent in someone who's only been on the job and couldn't answer questions, been there just a matter of months. So it's a stonewall.
The acting administrator, to your point, Daniel Tangerlini, who's the guy who replaced the guy in the bathtub, he didn't even show up today because he's on vacation. Is that right?
Well, that's right. And I have postponed this hearing 3 times now, and I wasn't going to postpone it again. We'll bring Tangerlini in, but the problem you've got is this second tier now of folks. There's some deputies involved. There's other administrators who are now involved in the second level of conferences that is under investigation. So the scandal just has mushroomed.
It keeps growing.
The bonus issue is mind-boggling.
I read about other issues like here in New York, saying that they have signed a lease to lease the 50th through the 56th floor of the Freedom Towers here in New York. This is brand new, very expensive office space. They're with Condé Nast magazine. I mean, why do these people still have the ability to spend money? Why don't you shut off their funding?
Well, the law says any lease over $2.7 million comes back to Congress, and they signed a $350 million lease and just thumbed their nose at us. The bonus information is astounding. Again, they have 1% of the employees, and we uncovered $10 million. The media helped uncover another $30 million in bonuses. That means that their 1% of federal employees got 10% of all the bonuses in the federal government.
It's amazing.
When they weren't supposed to get any.
Congressman Mica, we are so upset and outraged and offended as taxpayers about this story. I hope you can clean it up for us.
Well, we're gonna continue till we get to the bottom of it and hold people accountable.
All right, thank you so much.
For the good old days when we thought that this guy was our biggest problem at the General Services Administration. Turns out the GSA's misuse of taxpayer money goes far beyond Jeff Neely. Record bonuses, lavish conferences continue even after the top leadership resigned. Congress grilling GSA officials again today on Capitol Hill. Tom Schatz, president of Citizens Against Government Waste, says it's taxpayers who are getting burned now. He joins me. Tom, welcome to the show again. What did you think of this hearing today in front of the Transportation Committee?
Oh, it's about time. It's been going on for years. Congress has failed in its oversight responsibilities. Someone finally caught on to what was happening at GSA. Jerry, one of the underlying problems with GSA is that they have been overcharging other agencies for their services for years. $300 million in kind of a slush fund over the last 5 years. No wonder they're handing out more bonuses than any other agency in proportion to their size and throwing these lavish conferences.
Tom, how do they get away with that overcharging? It seems to me that other agencies would want to be paying less money.
Well, absolutely. They create this multiple award schedule, which is a pretty good service. They're the buying office of the government, so they consolidate all the buying power, and it usually is a pretty good deal. But then they charge a fee to the other agencies for that service. They're only supposed to recover their costs, but they've been taking in an average of $60 million extra each year for the last 5 years. And Congress needs to change that formula. It's unaccountable, by the way.
You
it's
know,
not
I hear
appropriated
something
money.
new about this agency every single day. And you said they're the buying agency for the federal government. To me, they're the spending agency for the federal government. A lot of talk today about payment of bonuses as well as these conferences. And we've focused on the cost of these conferences, how big they are, how lavish they are. But in fact, I keep asking myself, why are they having all these conferences?
Well, that's certainly a point. In other organizations where there is a financial problem, and certainly the federal government is pretty much going broke, one of the first places people start cutting back is travel and conferences. The Obama administration, to its credit, in its budget said, let's cut 10%. Congress wants to cut more. GSA itself has cut back, or so they say, and yet they're still throwing this conference in Nashville as we speak.
It goes on and on and on and on. And the Nashville conference, boy, does this get me fired up. They're at the Grand Ole Opry. Apparently, there are thousands of employees there. There was an interesting exchange today in front of the Transportation Committee that starts with that. I want you to hear it.
Over 6,000 rooms at the Gaylord in Nashville. I understand the presidential suite is occupied today. Is there a GSA employee in the presidential suite?
I do not know.
It's over $3,000 a night. You don't know?
I don't know.
After the president issued his executive order, we found out there were 77 more conferences around the nation. I think the question the taxpayer wants answered is, why? Why are these agencies ignoring the President of the United States?
Not only that, but they had new management in place by the time most of this happened. What's going on there? Why? This is a culture, a government culture run amok.
Well, again, I think the underlying reason is this sense of entitlement because they bring in all of this extra money that Congress cannot control because it's based on charging the other agencies for this service on the award schedule. Congress needs to change that formula. They need to put into place in the spending bill for GSA a strict limit on conferences and make sure that they adhere to those limits.
You know, we were talking about bonuses before. They had 44 million total bonuses in fiscal year 2011. That is, I believe, 10% of all the bonuses. The number of workers they have, their workforce, is just 1% of the entire federal government. Completely out of whack. Why is it taking us so long to find this out? And, you know, look, these Republicans are all over this because it's a great campaign issue. But why don't they get out in front of some of this stuff and fix it before it hits the headlines?
That's exactly the right question, Jerry, because Congress has always failed to perform sufficient oversight. There are multiple agencies performing the same job, a duplication that could total almost $400 billion a year. The GAO has issued 2 big reports on duplication and overlap. Congress has done nothing to change how any of those programs are administered or paid for. So they are clearly at fault because they're in charge of the purse strings and the taxpayers' money, and they just don't get out in front. It's always after the fact, oh, we're so sorry this happened.
We're
well,
so
how about
sorry,
stopping it first?
And can I get a vote for November because now it's a campaign issue? You know, a pox on both of your houses. That's what I say. Tom, thanks for coming on tonight. One thing I do want to mention before you go, though, just to be fair and balanced here, the agency itself, GSA, is saying that they're reviewing all these bonuses, the award system that's been so well publicized. They're looking into this themselves, hoping to make changes to it. Couldn't happen soon enough. Again, Tom, thanks so much for your time. And here's your chance to weigh in on our question tonight. Do members of Congress have any credibility criticizing the GSA for wasting money? Log on to jerrywillis.com. Vote on the right-hand side of the screen. I'll share the results at the end of tonight's show. The GSA, just a disaster when it comes to wasting money, and the agency has become the poster child for corruption in government. So it might not be surprising to find out government corruption is the second biggest issue for voters in this election cycle. Let's bring in Tucker Carlson, now editor-in-chief for the Daily Caller. So Tucker, you know, clearly voters are frustrated with corruption. Are you surprised it's a #2 issue? And what do you make of this whole GSA controversy?
Well, I'm having trouble catching my breath after your last segment because it made me so mad. But, yes, no, I'm not surprised at all by this data, by these poll results, partly because of the segment you just did, when you've got GSA employees possibly spending the night at the presidential suite at Dollywood or wherever. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Grand
the bottom
Ole
line
Opry.
is the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah, it's a nice place.
Federal employees cannot be fired. You're more likely to die on the job than lose it. And they make, on average, more in salary and benefits than their private sector counterparts. The fix is in. People understand that. Add to that the fact that government is now enthusiastically playing venture capitalist, investing in companies it wants to succeed. That creates a ripe environment for corruption. In fact, corruption is almost inevitable, which is why government historically has not done that. And people get it. And so, of course, they're concerned about corruption.
I just wish we could get on top of this before the dollars are spent, before
Yes.
Solyndra wastes $500 million, before our taxpayer dollars are right out the window. Why does Congress have such a bad record of getting government to be efficient?
Well, because government's not good at efficiency.
No,
government is good at doing big things. It's terrific at fighting wars. It's pretty good at paving roads, building infrastructure. But any task that requires subtlety or a deft touch is beyond the reach of government or any large organization. Bureaucracies, just by their nature, aren't very good
I agree with
at
that.
subtle things, right? They're inefficient.
You're
That's
absolutely
why.
true.
Right. So it's an inherent limitation that Congress doesn't recognize because they're blinded by hubris.
Well, you know, which brings me to my second topic with you. You said big bureaucracies aren't really efficient, can't do anything well. Makes me think of China, right? Well, Elizabeth Warren says our country, the US of A, inexplicably should be more like China. Here's what she said in an ad.
Our competitors are putting people to work, building a future. China invests 9% of its GDP in infrastructure. America, we're at just 2.4%. We can do better.
Okay, this makes my head hurt for many reasons, but I want your response.
Well, and their one-child policy is also something we should think about emulating. I mean, it's very hard to take this ersatz American Indian seriously no matter what she says. But just to try to take it seriously for a second, one, of course, you don't want to hold up China as a model of anything but totalitarian repression. Second, we're not spending money on infrastructure because we're not spending enough on government. The money that government takes in goes primarily to government salaries, to benefits, to health care, and to retirement. Okay? So actually, the problem is we're spending money in the wrong places. It's not that we're not spending enough overall. We're spending an awful lot.
And hello, Tucker. We have roads and bridges. China's in the process of building that for a population that is only now getting cars, okay? So I don't know what part of China you want to pick up. Is it the lack of a free press? Is it constraining free speech? I mean, the problems with her statement are just inexplicable.
China has literally over 1 million people living in caves as of today. So China is America 1810. I mean, it's ramping up the process of industrialization. They're doing a great job in a lot of ways, you know, not to take away from their achievement, but they're coming from a place that looks a lot like the Middle Ages by our standards. So, of course, they're investing in infrastructure. They have to. They don't have any.
Exactly. Well, Tucker, thanks for...